Okay, good. So that's metabolic rate or metabolism. It's a sum process of all things that happen in an organism. How does strength training affect metabolic rate? Now I've got 7 things here. Let's walk through these one at a time. The first one you'll see is your workout itself. And so let's look at some broad numbers. We know that for men typically you're going to burn about 200 calories. This is very ballpark for a full body strength workout that works all the major muscles in a little less than 30 minutes. So if I look at myself as an example, I burn about 200 calories. My workout is actually shorter than most people's because I like it to be over sooner. So, so I'm doing about, those of you who know me, about 4 repetitions on an exercise. We recommend between 4 and 6 generally. I like to do 4. I like to fatigue sooner, have it done sooner. So for 4 reps, I'm on the machine for about 1:20. I'm doing 8 exercises. So I've got, what is it? It's about 10 minutes of muscular work if I go from machine to machine. And so in 10 minutes of muscular work, my calorie expenditure per minute of actual activity would be categorized as high at 200 calories for 10 minutes. Who is the mathematician here? What is the calories per minute? If I burn 200 and I exercise for 10 minutes, it's 20, exactly. So I'm burning 20. So if you look at any physiology textbook on calorie expenditure tables, you'll see 20 as very high intensity in terms of energy expenditure. So for the behavior itself, the time you do it, whether you're doing 4, 5, 6 reps, doesn't matter that much, but it is considered very high intensity. So if we just said, hey, is it worth doing this? Am I burning enough calories? Because we always want to know, how many calories does this burn? We see programs promoted as burn 70,000 calories in 1 hour. So it really is a valid, useful, productive, time-efficient way to get high energy expenditure for what you're actually doing during the behavior itself. It's just not a steady state activity, right? You have to get off chest to go to compound where you got to rest for a few seconds to regroup and get situated. So your heart rate technically dips down a little bit between those exercises, but that's okay. If I look at the activities themselves and what I do, it is a very high calorie expenditure for the time that you're invested in the activity. And I'm going to build on that in just a second. So the workout itself is a good calorie burner. The second thing you see there listed is the afterburn. This is a sort of a lay term. Technically, this is called the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. Technical term for the calories you burn after the workout. We've heard about this for decades. And in the 60s and 70s, we heard a lot about aerobic exercise. And yeah, a good hard run, a good aerobic dose of activity, we can keep your BMR up for the next 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. And there are calories burned, and that's accurate. Your metabolic rate doesn't just drop down after you stop running, after you get off the elliptical. It takes time for it to trickle down to where it was at rest. And so there is an afterburn for any activity. As the intensity is higher, that afterburn is more significant and it goes longer. It just makes common sense if you look at intensity and recovery. But what we have recently discovered about strength training in the last decade or so is that this lasts for days. And so what happens with resistance exercise is that we are inducing what we call cellular damage to the skeletal muscle. And most of you who train with us, you know this. We know that we're trying to create these microscopic tears to the muscle fibers. That's a good thing because that takes a lot of energy to heal from. And so what we're trying to do, and we'll get to the to-dos shortly, is say work hard enough that I know I'm damaging your bicep, that I know I'm damaging your shoulder, your back, your leg. Now, in a good way. This is not overstress, it's an appropriate dose of stress to that target muscle. And so this causes a huge increase in basal metabolic rate. When tissues are damaged in your body says, hey, if I'm going to get back to normal life and function, I better restore this damage and fix it and replace those amino acids and assemble new amino acids and have no contractile proteins. And so this compensatory response is significant. And so what we see is a 7 to 10% increase in BMR up to 4 days after the workout. 4 days later, John is still burning calories because of that last rep on leg press that he did on Tuesday night. Not 4 hours, not 40 hours, 4 days later. 100+ hours later, you could still be burning calories from what you did from your last strength workout, simply because the metabolic process of rebuilding damaged tissue is very costly. It's very expensive. And so if you know anything about protein dynamics and protein physiology, we know that to drive protein synthesis is expensive to the body. It doesn't like to do it because it uses a lot of calories. But if I can force it to do it, if I can do a tough set that hurts and really, again, microscopically damage the bicep, I'm forcing it to drive that protein process up. And so that's what we're doing with our strength workout. This is big. This is probably the biggest insight in the last 20 years in strength training. And so that number can equate to 300 to 400 extra calories on top of what you burned here. So take the 200 that you already burned, right? Add 400 on top of that. You just got 600 calories for investing 15 to 20 minutes of your life. And so now that calorie value per minute is over 30. There isn't even a textbook on the planet that has measured an activity that shows energy expenditure that high, because we're looking at the activity. But if I look at the value, John, you only have to work out 20 minutes. You're burning calories for days. So if we want to quantify this, we should add that to that textbook and say, hey, look at what this is happening. It's a different energy expenditure, but it still counts. And so there is no activity known to mankind that can induce this kind of ongoing compensatory, energy expensive response other than resistance exercise.
Every 3 times a week, with a day off in between.
Yeah.
If it's going on for 40 days, you never recover yourself.
That's correct. You never recover. And so you...
That's why I'm dragging around the house all the time.
That's right. Exactly right. And so John knows, and I'll add details to it, but we're really recommending how many times a week, guys? That's right, yeah, two, yeah. So I'll reinforce that, but yeah. Occasionally we get ahead of ourselves by thinking more is better, and we cut into that compensatory response. We feel okay, but we're not measuring, CO2 production, and we're not doing that to ourselves, so we don't know. But anyway, the epoch is significant. Hundreds of calories for days after the strength workout. What about adding muscle to your body? We all know that strength training is the most efficient and safe way to build muscle as well as bone tissue. And so this was overlooked for years too. In fact, it was over